Hey everyone, I'm Nisha. Welcome to Tales in Text and welcome to another episode of Books and Tarot. I want to be reviewing the book The Other Boleyn Girl by Philippa Gregory. Now, Philippa Gregory has used the real life of Anne Boleyn, who was the second wife of King Henry VIII in the 1500s. And she's written this historical fiction book which narrates the life of Anne Boleyn, but from the perspective of her younger sister, Mary Boleyn, or Mary Carey, and later Mary Stafford. Now, from a literary perspective, I found the book absolutely spectacular. It was extremely compelling, it was very entertaining, it was just gripping. I could not stop reading. I devoured the book so quickly, and it's a book that definitely, if you enjoy literary historical fiction, I definitely would recommend this book to you. The Other Boleyn Girl by Philippa Gregory. The characters are well sketched out. You find yourself being irritated with some characters while you find that you're really in awe of others. Of course, the focus is on the Boleyn family and Edward VIII, with a couple of other characters such as Catherine of Aragon, and with the occasional appearances of the Seymours. And for those of you who might not know, Jane Seymour is the third wife of Edward VIII, right after Anne Boleyn. So you see these different people, and then you see these characters fleshed out really well. The drama at court is brought to life. And again, I do wish the drama at court had been even more fleshed out than it is, because that would have given us a better sense of what actually happened at court and what 15th and 16th century court life in Tudor England looked like, and that would have been really exciting. The descriptions of the court that you can find right now in the book are good enough, but I wish that they could have been better. So overall, I really enjoyed the book. Like I mentioned, I just sped through and gobbled up the book, and it's a humongous book. I think it's around 500 plus pages or something. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but it's a huge book, and but you don't feel like you're reading a huge book. I really enjoyed it. So the tarot card that I picked up for The Other Boleyn Girl was the Wheel of Fortune. So let's just put this a little closer. So I think this book represents the Wheel of Fortune really well, because it really talks about the fortunes of the Boleyn family, and they rise out of nowhere as upstarts in the kingdom of Edward VIII. They go from being nothing and no one to being someone really special and really important, important enough to change the course of England's history, and you will find out why later. And you can see how they rose to power so suddenly, and just as suddenly they fell crashing down in disfavor. They lost the favor of the king, they lost the favor of the court, they lost the favor of the kingdom, and ultimately it resulted in an epic tragedy for the Boleyn family. And so that really encapsulates to me the essence of the Wheel of Fortune. So in this wheel, you can see that there are so many threads, and it shows that you pull one thread and everything else reacts as well. Now, while you do have the agency to pull the threads that you want to pull at and try to make life the way you want it, there is also fate, or rather the act of other people pulling the threads of fate as well. So everybody is tempering with the Wheel of Fortune, and ultimately, while it goes up, it does come down eventually. So to me, this book is an encapsulation of the Wheel of Fortune. I think Anne Boleyn's life in itself was a Wheel of Fortune, and I really like the usage of the owl over here in this card, because that really does remind me of the the focus with which Anne and her family would look out for opportunities to best their competitors and to get ahead in the favor of the king. And an owl is a bird that is considered to be very wise. It looks out for danger, it looks out for opportunities. It's not a passive bird that life just happens to. And to me, Anne and the rest of the Boleyns are like owls. They are very wary about what's going on around them. They make sure that they have people who supply them with information that they need, and they take decisions just as quickly. So I really feel like the owl kind of encapsulates the essence of the Boleyn family. So overall, I think the Wheel of Fortune is the perfect card for this book. Another card that I thought of pulling was an oracle card called Run with Wolves. And I'll just tell you why I feel like this fits with this book. So when people talk of running with wolves, it's usually used in the positive sense. You know, it shows courage, it shows perseverance, it shows promise or potential for something new. If you just, you know, take the plunge and do something that you fear. It shows willingness to become more mature and jump into the big leagues. So these are just some of the meanings of what Run with Wolves mean. Now for me, the word wolves has another meaning, another connotation over here, and that is, you know, 16th century England was not a friendly place, especially if you are a woman or a woman who gives birth to girls. And if you want to have the highest stakes in the game, you need to be willing to play with the wolves. You need to be willing to jump into the arena and fight tooth and nail with those wolves who are baring their teeth and who are snapping their jaws at you, and who have no compunction to just come in and take a bite out of you and your bounty. And so, you know, Anne does that. We see that the Boleyn family really gives it its all. Anne herself gives it her all, and she's willing to run with the wolves. She's willing to fight with the wolves. And we see that also has negative consequences after that for her. Because, you know, when we look at, like I said, running with the wolves, we only see the positive results that come out of it, but sometimes not everything works out. And when you're running with the wolves, you need to remember that if the alpha wolf does not like the fact that you are outpacing them, they are going to turn around and bite back, and they're going to command the rest of the troop to be either antagonistic or outright attack you. So, you know, the alpha is going to challenge you. And that's exactly kind of what happened with Anne Boleyn and the rest of the Boleyns in history, reality, as well as also in this book, which encapsulates her life. Now, I want to talk a little bit about the historical accuracy of this book and a couple of other things that I found out. So my belief when I went into this book was that at least a large chunk of it would definitely be according to the sources. But just today afternoon, I watched this video by a historian who is a specialist in Tudor history, in the Tudor era and the Elizabethan era, which is after the Tudor era. And she was talking about how this book really plays into the stereotype, and mind you, it's the wrong stereotype of Anne as the whore versus the Virgin Madonna. Now, this whore versus the Virgin Madonna is an archetype that is often used to kind of belittle women as being the temptresses, the seductresses, and also the chaste librarian, the chaste virgin who is very worried about her soul and her purity. And apparently, the premise of this whole whore versus Virgin Madonna, the whole stereotype on which Anne's character is built in The Other Boleyn Girl, there is no evidence to suggest that Anne was like that. In fact, the historian goes on to say in that video, and if I can find that video, I think it's from Penguin UK, that video on YouTube. I will link that down below if I can find it. She spoke of how Anne was apparently very religious in nature. That doesn't really come out in the book. The book sort of shows Anne as this godless woman, wherein Anne becomes pious only when her life is at stake. Apparently, the real Anne Boleyn wasn't supposed to be like that. She was different. She was a lot more caring. She was a lot more religious. She was a lot more concerned with the rules of propriety. And in saying that as well, she was also extremely ambitious, and within those realms, within those boundaries of behaviors that were acceptable to her, and by extension which were accepted by the church, she would try to use that whatever freedom that she had to her maximum potential to achieve her political ambitions, to achieve her goals. And another thing that kind of irked me in the end and also kind of made me feel kind of question my own analysis of this book is the grounds on which Anne was beheaded. Now, there are a lot of theories floating around as to why Edward VIII chose to behead Anne when he had essentially left a lot of his other wives, not all of them, but most of his other wives. Um, you know, he let them live their lives out in seclusion, in a nunnery or in exile, and he sort of left them alone. But why was it that he chose to behead Anne? There are quite a few theories, but the theory that this book uses, and I don't want to talk about which theory that is because I want you to discover that, because that can actually be a spoiler for you here. But the theory that Philippa Gregory uses for this book, for The Other Boleyn Girl, is apparently the least accepted theory among historians and Tudor experts, among Anne Boleyn experts, because the theory that is used in this book as to why Anne was held and charged in the first place, why she was killed in the first place, that theory is something that is extremely far-fetched, considering Anne's true character, not the character represented in the book, mind you, but her true character in reality. So overall, for the literary aspect of The Other Boleyn Girl, I really liked it. I would give it a 4.5 out of 5. But for the historical accuracy, I think it just gets a 2. Because it seems like it's pretty historically inaccurate. I mean, even considering that, there isn't a lot of information from that era in terms of actual recordings of Mary and Anne Boleyn themselves, of them talking to each other, or records about them. There's only very limited records still present. Even then, I don't think it should be that hard to source material that can give you a definitive understanding of how the protagonists actually were in reality. So yeah, this is a mixed review, I know, but it's still a book that you can definitely read. It's very readable, so I definitely urge you to read it. So do go check it out. And yes, as usual, do remember to like and subscribe to my channel, and stay tuned for other episodes of Books and Tarot. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.